After taking a deep dive into Pierre-Luc Dubois' situation here recently, I decided to try and dissect the big picture, meaning that, since we've seen several players depart from Manitoba over the years, we're going to examine the past and present in order to better gain an understanding as to why so many are leaving. We're going to also glance over a few current players as well that could be on the move, sooner rather than later. 2011. It was a very special, unforgettable year for Jets fans, as this was the year the team would be returning to Winnipeg since the original team left in 1996. Since this wasn't an expansion, but rather a relocation, the Jets roster was composed of players from the Atlanta Thrashers instead. Evander Kane, Dustin Byfuglien, Blake Wheeler, among others, were the key players that helped reignite the passion for Jets hockey in Manitoba. Another important piece of the puzzle came in via draft, as the newly appointed GM, Kevin Cheveldayoff, had the honors of selecting 7th overall, and that pick was indeed Mark Scheifele from the Barrie Colts. While this may seem unrelated, I promise this will tie in eventually. The year after, in 2012, Cheveldayoff chose defenseman Jacob Trouba, drafted 9th overall. Trouba brought with him a brand of physicality and a two-way game that Winnipeg found to be increasingly valuable. However, this selection of Trouba marked the beginning of a rather troubling trend to come. While Winnipeg was building its core diligently through drafting, well, Kane had also been busy rubbing Jets fans and his teammates the wrong way. For Kane, it was clear that Winnipeg just wasn't his ideal fit, and after clashing with Byfuglien, he, along with Zach Bogosian, were traded to Buffalo. In turn, the Jets received defenseman Tyler Myers, Yoel Armia, and Brendan Lemieux, along with some draft picks. The next part of the story takes us to the 2015 NHL entry draft, otherwise known as the Connor McDavid sweepstakes. Even though Cheveldayoff wasn't as fortunate as Peter Chiarelli, he did have 2 first-round selections that year, the 17th and 25th. A dynamic two-way center, Kyle Connor, was the first of 2 choices. And yet another talented forward in Jack Roslovic was the second selection. After making the playoffs for the first time in 2015 since moving to Winnipeg, the team hit rock bottom next campaign. However, due to finishing last in their division and 25th as far as points were concerned league-wide, the Jets were granted the 2nd overall selection as a consolation prize. And as most of us know, the pick turned out to be Finnish sensation Patrik Laine. Known for his shot release, Laine came into the draft often being compared to Alex Ovechkin. By the time Laine joined the lineup, the roster was really beginning to take shape, and by the time his sophomore season was winding down, the Jets embarked on a lengthy playoff run. Things were picking up for Winnipeg, and for back-to-back seasons, the Jets finished 2nd in their division. Despite this, one could easily surmise that 2019 was the year that things began to unravel. Once the 2019-2020 campaign commenced, both Tyler Myers and Jacob Trouba had left in free agency. This was also Dustin Byfuglien's last NHL season as well, and was the beginning of some very complicated negotiations that ended with his contract being terminated. And after one more season of play in Winnipeg, Patrik Laine then followed suit in 2021 and was traded to Columbus thereafter, along with Jack Roslovic. At this point, since he drafted Jacob Trouba in 2012, Cheveldayoff lost 3 out of 6 of the first-rounder picks spanning from 2012 to 2016. Obviously with Laine, the GM did get a return in Pierre-Luc Dubois and a draft pick, but still, he had to feel some frustration to say the least. Following the Laine departure, the roster seemed rather bleak. Sure, Scheifele was there, Connor Hellebuyck never left the net, but considering how much the team lost, the reinforcements that have been brought in just haven't been enough. Dubois, even in his debut campaign with the team, struggled and only recorded 20 points in 41 games played. And after sweeping the Oilers and falling to Montreal in the 2nd round last year, the team seemed to be a shell of its former self last campaign. As for the first time in 5 years, it failed to make a postseason appearance. 2nd round pick Andrew Kopp was also traded by the 2022 deadline to the Rangers. So we've covered the how this team went from being a real contender to a bottom-feeding team. And now we're going to try to get into why. Obviously, a big part of the reason this team has fallen apart is because everyone keeps leaving. And at the time I'm making this video, reports have been released that indicate, according to Elliotte Friedman, that Pierre-Luc Dubois wants to leave Winnipeg as well. There's also been speculation that Captain Blake Wheeler is open to being traded and moving on for good from the Jets. So again, why is this happening? For starters, I think it's important to focus in on the constant, or rather the player that has been in the lineup since day one, Mark Scheifele. Since Patrik Laine decided to divulge the reason why he left Winnipeg to finish media, we do know, according to the forward, that it was because of how Scheifele and Wheeler treated him. While some believe it was Wheeler who felt inferior because Laine positionally, it could be that Scheifele was more to blame. Sure, Laine isn't a center, but if you're the type that loves the attention due to being a star talent and suddenly that spotlight is on someone else, well, if you're that egotistical, once that's threatened, you react. Dubois, another example. While he's not as flashy as Laine, he has most definitely been viewed as a star player, at least while playing in a small market. While we don't know for sure if Scheifele has had any influence over Dubois' decision to not re-sign in Winnipeg, it does seem like a possibility. Another factor could be luck as well. Jacob Trouba, for instance, vacated Manitoba due to his fiancée at the time reportedly wanting more opportunities in her life professionally. Evander Kane was definitely a great player while he was there, but had a lot of maturing to do. But even still, whatever it is internally, you know it's bad when longtime coach Paul Maurice just up and resigns out of nowhere. Going back to Laine, who has been the only player to really speak out regarding the dysfunction, said, quote, "The issues in Winnipeg right now have to deal with issues in the dressing room between competing personalities. And when there is a divided room, that gets around the league. And players generally, if they have other options, are going to exercise them until the whole situation gets cleaned up. All of the issues in the room could be solved by trading one guy," end quote.